What is going on, gaming nerds? Welcome back to Midnight Gaming with Designare. Thanks for coming to the channel and hanging out. Hopefully you guys are having an amazing day. I'm having a pretty decent day. It is midnight yet again, and yet again, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on Russian Fishing 4, and today, the rest of Ladoga Lake. Let's jump into it. Why did I start the recording over here? Now I have to go back all the way across the lake. Gosh. Okay, so to start off with Ladoga Lake, if you guys are looking for pike fishing, we're not going to talk about pike fishing today because basically we've already done that. I've already got a video that's up. I'm going to have the link to it pop up in the upper right hand corner of the screen right about now. Isn't that magical? And you can go ahead and click on that and you can watch all the pike fishing that we do here. This is a really great lake. In my opinion, this is one of the best lakes out of all of the game when it comes down to pike fishing, mainly because the fact that there's really only two spots that are really spectacular when it comes to pike fishing here, and it's along this wall down here, and it's over here underneath the bridge right here. Okay, so go ahead and click on that if you're looking for pike fishing. You can go ahead and go over there, but we're going to talk about all of the rest of the stuff when it comes down to Ladoga Lake. Now, up until this point, you guys probably are wondering why I haven't done a Ladoga Lake video. Well, the fact of the matter is Ladoga Lake isn't very exciting. When Ladoga Lake first came out, people were very surprised at how unexciting it was. People actually were having a hard time finding the fish, and some people were even getting banned because they were being so critical of the lake. One of the great things about the actual lake is the fact that it has all of the same stores as all the other lakes, except for it does have a beluga store, so you can go ahead and hit Y for your workshop to repair stuff. You can hit E for the tackle shop if you want to buy all of your beluga stuff here. You get a 20% off when it comes down to all your beluga purchases, basically, or your repairs and stuff like that. So you can go ahead and do that, and then obviously you can return an item by hitting G. So things are a little bit different when it comes down to this shop and normal workshops and stuff like that, but the beluga place is here, and this is a great place to come. Just remember, whenever you come here, you have to pay the toll to get here, like 28 silver or whatever it is. Yeah, so you have to pay the toll here, so you have to add that into your repair costs. If that puts you over the repair costs of like another lake where you're trying to repair at, then you might as well just repair at the other lake. But if it does a huge bonus, you know, in savings when it comes down to repairing, then you may want to come here. Now, speaking of how crappy the lake was before, the fact of the matter is with trolling on the lake before was actually pretty decent at the start. People were really only be able to catch fish with the trolling, but they couldn't figure out where the fish were before, and that's because it's a fairly unique lake. The fact of the matter is after Ladoga came out and people kind of complaining about it, the devs decided to switch things up a little bit. It's more of a feeder fishing, pike fishing, jigging, and a little bit of float fishing lake. Now, the trolling on this lake is absolute garbage. I'm just going to be completely honest with you right now. It's completely garbage. I have trolled this whole thing numerous times trying to figure out if there's just something that I'm missing or what it is. It's just not a trolling lake. So if you're coming here for trolling, don't. You might as well just leave. I mean, you can come and test it out if you want, but you might as well just leave because honestly, the trolling is absolutely garbage. Now, when it comes down to float fishing, basically with float fishing, actually, before we do that, let's talk about the fish. Let's talk about the different types of fish. That'll help me out when it comes down to explaining the different types of fish. The types of fish, if we just go into the records and we go into Ladoga Lake, all regions, here are all of your fish right here. Okay, now you got some funky monkey fish like this Valum whitefish. The Venice, the Vimba, all of these, the Volkov whitefish, I've never actually seen this. I don't think I've ever actually caught one of these. And then these whitefish here, these are all very odd, but there's some familiar faces here. You've obviously got your perch and stuff like that. But you've also got eel and burbot. Okay. And then you've also got zander. And then you've also got char. Now, the main fish that you're going to be looking for, you're probably thinking is going to be like, oh, the Atlantic salmon and like the lake trout. There's lake trout in here and stuff like that. Where is the lake trout? There's a lake trout. There's lake trout. No, those are all trolling fish. You're not going to be wanting to you're not going to be catching most of these fish, to be completely honest with you. I'll be completely honest with you guys. The main fish you're going to be doing are char and burbot, eels, pike, zander, and there's actually a couple of different types of char, but we'll talk about those in a second. Okay, there is one fish in here which is the alien fish, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. There it is, the three-spined sickleback. This is something that you'll catch a considerable amount of time when you're float fishing here. I don't suggest coming here just to float fish. If you find a cafe order and you're going for the three-spined stickleback, fine, cool. I call this the alien fish because, well, it looks like an alien. But honestly, I wouldn't come here just specifically for that. And if you're looking for that, honestly, right underneath the campsite, just right here, there's a bunch of weeds and stuff that is in the pike fishing video. Right underneath the bridge that you can float fish for the sicklebacks. Honestly, the sticklebacks are pretty much everywhere along the banks and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, all of those fish you're pretty much not going to be really... You're not going to be going for, plain and simple. To start off with, the thing that's kind of great about this lake is the fact that every now and then it goes absolute ballistic. I mean, it goes ballistic. The hot spots become hotter than any other lake that I've seen before. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but recently there was 2 hot spots that came out. Actually, there was 5. There was a char, there was a sturgeon, there was a bream, and then there also was a roach hotspot that came out in the past year. Okay, now when it comes down to the bream are actually fairly easy. You want to do something like, let's look at the favorites. You want to use your normal bream setup, whichever normal bream setup you have. This is one of mine. If you guys didn't know, the Sputnik Proton Pro is a discontinued reel. That is basically the Sputnik Pulsar is a carbon copy of the Proton Pro. They just changed the look of it, and that's basically it. So this is kind of my basic bream setup. You guys know how to fish bream. You shouldn't have to have me tell you how to do this. But basically, when it comes down to your bream setup, you're looking at coming down to the dock when these hot spots happen, and usually with the dock about the second, I believe it's right over here, this island, you 35-meter clip and you're casting out right here. That's it. That's all that you actually need when it comes down to the bream spot. Okay, now like I said, with the roach and the bream spot that happened, these became super hot. I've never seen bream or roach become this hot before in the entire game. We're talking 10 minutes of fishing, 3 rods, 3 fishing rods or feeder rods, and you can get 3 to 5 trophies within that 10 minutes. People were making thousands and thousands of silvers, but they were mostly doing it because they were coming here trying to boost their trophy numbers. I think that's kind of cheating, but let's face it, we're all fishermen, we're all liars. So that's kind of what people come down here and do. I personally like to use the roach and the bream for one, making fish pieces and restocking my fish pieces, and 2, for float fishing. I'll come in here and I've got a Balinese rod that I use, and I go ahead and fish with that. I do float fishing with it, and when you find a super hot bream spot, you can actually do float fishing for the bream, and you can level up your bream. Or level up your float fishing using bream and roach with these super hot spots. They don't happen very often, but they do happen here, and it's usually right here where you'll be fishing right off of the dock. Okay, so the next one is burbot and eel. Now, before I say this, before I explain the burbot and the eel, let's talk about if you should come here specifically to catch eel. No, do not come here just specifically to catch eel. You got too many other places in the game that are absolutely fantastic. There's no reason for you to come here specifically for eel. That being said, okay, now that I finally found it, oh my gosh, for some reason I went brain stupid and had brainworms and I couldn't figure out how to get to the fish. My eel, my one and only eel that was a trophy, was a 4-kilogram trophy eel that I caught here on Ladoga Lake. I'll say this again, do not come here specifically for the eels. Yes, you have a chance of catching them, but if you're going to come here and you're going to fish, you want to fish for burbot and not the eels, and you will get a chance at getting an eel. So let's go ahead and go over to the burbot spot that I like the best, and we'll talk about that. And we are pulling in right now. If I can actually just get a spot where I can pull in here. This island right here, oh, come on, just there we go. This island right here is one of my favorite islands to fish for burbot. Now, this is really up to you if you want to do this at nighttime. I don't suggest going past 10 o'clock when it comes down to burbot and eel. But what you're doing is you're on this center island right here, and you're going to be casting into the 14-meter hole. Now, you need to be kind of careful about this. This is a very long, deep, angled stretch of wall when it comes down to how this hole works, basically. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is a typical, let's see, what do I got going on here? A typical setup for burbot. This is my big burbot setup. Basically, this is if I hook into anything that's around a trophy. I have this only used for specifically trophies. Now, a lot of people believe that you shouldn't be going over 15 to 17 kilograms when it comes down to burbot. That's fine. I use a 30-gram mesh cage, but you can use upwards of 60 gram. I just use the 30 gram just to make it a little bit more sensitive. And then, you know, you've got your, I've got my Model 1 feeder. This is a very, very big setup for burbot, and it's just in case I hook into one of those 9-10 kilogram burbot. But for the most part, you could actually use like actually a Bream setup if you wanted to use some type of a where's my Bream setup here. This is my Bream setup. You can use one of these Bream setups right here and actually catch burbot on this. As long as you have enough line and everything else. This has 223. As long as it's not a trophy, you can catch burbot left and right with a setup like this. Okay, so with this setup, basically, once I get down to here, you can use either a burbot ground bait over here, and this is my burbot ground bait. It's a very basic burbot ground bait. As long as you have fish oil, it doesn't really matter what else is in it, as long as it's some type of a meat, chopped worms, bloodworms, maggots, stuff like that. However, I found that when it comes to eels and burbot, they bite on exactly the same thing. So you could use something like this. This is more of an advanced burbot / eel type of ground bait that you could actually use here. And it's dried krill, chopped worm cheese, zebra mussels, flaxseed, and the main attractant is fish oil. That is a must-have when it comes to burbot and eels. Now, this probably isn't going to make a huge difference when it comes down to burbot, but it may add a little bit of attractant. It's more for the eels. In fact, most people, when they fish for burbot, they actually will only use a simple weight instead of actually a cage. Okay, so you could do that if you want, but when you fish here, you want to make sure that you fish for burbot. Do not come here for eel. With the eels, most of the time your casting distance is literally going to be like 10 meters. And if you guys didn't know this, when it comes down to this game, the eel in the game, when it gets cold, they come out of their holes and they go closer to shore. When it goes warm, they go from shore and they go down into the depths of the hole. Okay, there's kind of a problem when it comes down to this hole. If you cast a little bit further out than 10 meters, what's going to happen is your bait is going to start rolling downhill, and what it's going to do is it's actually going to make it so the tip of your pole will actually bend and it'll look like you have a fish, and you'll just keep picking it up, jerking on it, thinking that you've actually got a fish on when you actually don't. Okay, so basically in this type of a situation, here is my advice. When I caught my trophy, I was fishing in got to get my tree wheel speed up here. I was fishing out in this 14-meter hole. Okay, so what happens is if you cast out, and I don't know if I can get it to do it because of how big this rod is, what'll happen is your bait will start rolling down the hill, and as you can see, it'll start bending the tip of your pole, and then you're going to be like, okay, well, obviously I got a bite. You're going to pick it up and go, wait, I don't have a bite. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit K, and it's going to let loose, and then you're going to hit K again, and as it rolls down the hill, it's going to bend your rod again. So you might as well just, by the time that you're done rolling down the hill, you might as well just pick up the stupid rod and do a 35-meter cast, in my opinion. So the 35-meter clip is pretty much what I suggest when it comes down to burbots. You can get eels very easily down there. You're coming down here for burbot. You might catch an eel or two, and that's basically my suggestion. That is my complete suggestion when it comes down to burbot, because when you cast at a 10-meter clip, your eel, yes, you do have a chance of catching eel, but you're probably going to get less burbot than you will if you were to cast a 35-meter clip. And would you rather have no burbot with a small chance of eel, or would you rather have a lot more burbot with a small chance of eel? In my opinion, going for the burbot is probably better. That way you have the small chance of eel, and then if you do catch an eel, it's just a bonus, but you will be making money off of the burbot. So this is one of my favorite spots when it comes down to actually going for burbot. And I don't suggest coming here upwards until about 2300 or 1 a.m. because the burbot really don't start biting until 1 or 2 a.m. For some reason, it's a lot later here than it is everywhere else where the burbot become active. But when they do become active, they become considerably active. You can get anywhere between 4 to 10 burbot in one night. So, you know, definitely consider that. And like I said before, the eels are just a bonus if you catch an eel. You know, you may go 1 hour, you may go 2 hours, and you may, oops, that's Merlin saying hi. Apologize. I'm sure that's loud. Sorry about your ears. But yeah, you may get a chance at catching an eel, and if so, it's just a bonus on the side. Okay, so you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, well, that's burbot at night. Now, what else can we fish for during the day, Mystic Nightmare? Well, I'm going to tell you guys right now, and I'm glad you asked my question. You're going to stay right where you're at if you want. It's up to you. You're going to pull in all your lines. You're going to go hit V, and you're going to go in and you're going to switch out your ground bait to Char, because you should have Char ground bait by now. This is my Char ground bait. It does work. It is a very basic Char. You can use this. You can look up the internet, try and find, you know, other people who have different stuff, different types of Char ground bait. But I switch over to that, and then I use there's like 4 different types of bait for Char. Okay. And it goes down to this: mayfly larvae, mayflies, grasshoppers, caddisfly, stoneflies, all in that order. Okay, you're going to stay in your same hole, in the same burbot hole, and you're just going to change out your ground bait, and you're going to change out your main bait. The main one for Char is mayfly larvae. That is going to be your best bet when it comes down to any Char. You might want to go with a smaller hook as well. I kind of tend to go with a size 6. Your mayfly larva is one of your best bets though. The next after your mayfly larva is going to be mayflies, because mayflies and mayfly larva are kind of the same thing. So you can go with mayflies. After mayflies, you want to look at grasshoppers. Grasshoppers can be very active when it comes down to Char. Also roach, you may hook into some roach, but grasshoppers are kind of your next option if you're not catching anything on that. And then after that, you might want to check out like the stonefly larva, and then possibly the caddisflies as well. You'll need a smaller hook for the caddisflies, but you might be able to hook a few things into caddisflies. Okay, freshwater gamaris. I haven't tried this, but I was considering trying this, thinking that it is a crustacean. Maybe I'll try this. It might actually work one of these days. I don't know if it will or not. But if you really want the highest chance of you getting a mayfly or a Char, then mayfly larva is the way to go. Just keep this in mind. You're going to be fishing during the day, and your fishing for Char is going to be probably much slower unless the Char are super active on feeder fishing. If it's slower, you don't want to be feeder fishing. You want to go out and you want to jig for Char. If it's very active, then you can go ahead and stay here. You can try anywhere along this 14-meter line right here for burbot, eels, and the Char. The Char during the day are actually very fun to catch on feeder rods because they're actually easy to pull in. But just so you know, you're probably going to get a lot longer wait time when it comes down to your Char during the day. And when it comes down to the 11-meter hole and the 18-meter hole for burbot and eel, just stay away from them. A lot of people will fish right here off of this island, and they'll go as deep as they can. I very, very, very rarely catch any burbot and Char. However, I'm sorry, burbot and eels. However, we are going to go over there right after the morning comes by, because it's getting dark. We're gonna head over there, and I will talk about that spot over there when it comes down to char and one other type of fish that might be actually kind of enjoyable for you people that have a big enough or large enough rod. Catch my point there? You see what I did there? All right, we'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, so it's around 3 a.m. We got a little bit of oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name. I've gone completely blank. Sunset going on here, or a sunrise, if you will. We are over at the secondary, my personal secondary char spot. Okay, and I'm obviously hooking into something over here. Something's playing with the line a little bit. Now, if you actually want to know where I'm at, here's the campsite right here. So you're right here on the campsite, and you're going to come around the corner. There's your rock wall over there. You're going to come down here, and there's a flat spot right here. This is a really good spot to be fishing the 11-meter hole down here. Okay, now here is your one and only warning when it comes down to this. Baltic sturgeon. Okay, let's pull this in real quick here, and let's talk about the Baltic sturgeons. The Baltic sturgeons are a type of sturgeon that I believe, I'm not 100% sure, I think you might be able to find them on other lakes, but I think they might only be actually over on this lake. Okay, there's a blue bream right there. Didn't know blue bream were in here. So basically your clip is going to be a clip meter of 60. Okay, obviously I did not cast that far enough. Let's look at the Baltic sturgeons real quick here, and then we'll talk about char. So when it comes down to records, then we go into weekly, excuse me, Baltic sturgeon can get to be absolutely massive. So if you do not have the gear for these, just watch out. Now, you're probably not going to be hooking into these very often, but at least this size, you're not going to be hooking in anything that big that often. For the USA, the biggest one right now is 24 kilograms. Oh, well, look who's that right there. Mystic Nightmare. Huh. I wonder who that guy is. Anyway, yeah, so obviously I caught one 10 kilogram, 24 kilograms, you know, this stuff like this, 18th, 15th, 16th, you know, that's probably going to be your average. These are the big ones. If you go over to Japan, your Baltic sturgeon, you do have a chance. They haven't even caught anything in Japan. You do have a chance of pulling them in. They're probably not going to be getting very big right off the bat. But if you're coming here, make sure you have the gear, because obviously some of them can get pretty damn big, as you can see. Right now, I'm actually fishing with my Tagara, Beluga Tagara, 35 kilogram. My Fortuna carp is not big enough for my Tagara. I've got something on the line, because you can see that glitch right there, but this is kind of a setup that you might want to consider looking at when it comes down to it. But you want a bigger carp rod. Mine is fairly big enough to get like a 25, 30, maybe 40, 50 kilograms, something like that at the most, if I play the fish right. But something like this would be like a very bottom of the line starter type of rod. Okay, now let's talk about your char for a minute. Now, this spot right here is my secondary char area. I mentioned before, you can come up and down here and you can bottom fish for char all along here. You're probably going to have to do it from this area right here or over here. That's really the only places you can fish for it, unless you come over into these islands right here. You can fish off from these islands right here as well. But let's talk about the char. There are 3 types of char here. Okay. And if we go into here and we go into Ladoga Lake, 3 types of char. The first char you're looking at is the regular everyday char. Absolute records, I want to go by absolute records for all regions so you guys can see how big they get. They don't get very big, so you don't actually need a massive setup for them. 10 kilograms max. Okay. Obviously, these are absolute records, so you probably won't even hook into this. On average, you'll get maybe between 1 to 5 kilograms. Okay. The secondary one that you're actually looking for is a red char. And I'm going to skip over the other char right here. Okay, so where's my red char? There's my red char. So here's your red char. Now, your red char get trophies very, very easily. I believe a 2 kilogram and above is a trophy on the red char. You are not going to see these as often as regular char. However, they're not super uncommon as well. And I don't want to say they're common, but you can get these, and they're very easy to catch a trophy with. These sell better than the regular char, but they're not the best selling char overall. The best selling char overall is the gray char. Now these are your unicorn fish. These gray char are very hard to catch, very hard to catch, and they are what ultimately you want to aim for if you can. However, if they have a completely different lure, you may want to just go over to the regular char and red char, because usually they bite on the same thing. The gray char a little bit different. You'll go a very long time without catching one, and then you'll catch one. Usually in 3 or 4 full keep nets, like 400 fish, I may get 4 maybe at best if I'm lucky, for gray char, and that's about it. Okay, so they're very rare, but they do sell very, very good, and at very low kilogram weights you'll get trophies from these. Okay, so the best way to catch these char, and the most notable type of fishing here on Ladoga Lake, is jigging for char. So what we're going to do is we're going to get over here into the 18-meter hole. I'm going to take you guys out there, okay, and we are going to go fish and go jig for, I'll show you a jigging setup for char and stuff like that. So I guess I'll just see you guys in a second. Okay, home again, jiggity jig. This is my little home area. This is one of the most popular areas right here to actually jig for char. Okay, now this area gives you access to the walls. It gives you access to back there. It gives you access to over there and over there and right there. This area is one of the most popular spots when it comes down to jigging. Okay, so when it comes down to actually jigging, here is a very heavy setup for jigging. Okay, now you can absolutely, without a doubt, jig step with or jig for char with something like this. The char do not get very big. Even if you pull in an 8 kilogram one, you can still, with something like this is a freaking feeder rod. I apologize about that stupid mistake, but basically I was actually going to be looking for something with my heavy stick, if I even actually have the express fishing heavies anymore. Here's a heavy right here. So something like this rod, 15 kilograms with maybe like a pulsar on it would be fine. 15 kilogram line, 10 kilogram fluorocarbon leader. That is absolutely fine. You can absolutely jig here with that. Like I said, char are very light. You'll get under 1 kilogram. At max, you'll get maybe 5 kilograms. On average, you'll probably get around probably 700 gram to 2 kilograms at most. Okay, this is my personal jigging setup when I come here because of one main reason. Remember I told you about those trolling fish that were at the very start, and it is the Arctic char. You can catch Arctic char here. You can hook into them and they will bite jigging. Atlantic salmon, no, Ladoga Lake, idiot. Atlantic salmon, Arctic char, I'm sorry, Arctic char are not here. I meant Atlantic salmon. So you can hook into Atlantic salmon. You can hook into, I believe, lake trout here. These are all of your trolling fish that you may accidentally hook into, and they can get up to 17 to 20 kilograms. Okay, this one gets up to 30 kilogram on Ladoga Lake. So you can hook into them. So I kind of go with a slightly bigger setup, but if you do hook into them, what you can actually do is just open up your reel and let them run, and hopefully that low tension bar will allow you to hook into or release it if you want, or you can try and catch it. That's why I use a slightly bigger setup like this, so I can try and catch it. All right, so the actual setup right here, obviously I've got a Beluga Narga with a Super Duty. A lot heavier than you actually need for the char here. It's just in case I catch one of those trolling fish. 22 kilogram line. A lot of people won't actually go this high. They'll actually go maybe 19, 20 kilograms at largest. I'm okay with 22 kilograms. 17 kilogram is absolutely fine. A lot of people go with a 13 kilogram fluorocarbon line. As you can see, I've got a huge, massive hook on it. Even for a light char like this, chars don't care. They will bite on the biggest freaking hooks you can imagine. So I can have no problem using extra large 2.0 hook. Okay. This is a mass of 42 grams. Why? Because I like throwing the living hell out of it. I like this thing to go flipping out there as far as I can so I can have it in the water jigging as much as possible. You can also use something like a large 2.0 with a 28 kilogram mass or a 21 kilogram mass. But as you can see, I'm just using a regular jigging rig. When it comes down to your rig, if you want, a lot of people really like to use Texas rigs here. Texas rigs are almost exactly the same thing as a regular rig. However, with the Texas rig, you have your weight on the end of right next to your lure. With a jigging rig, your hook is your weight. So it's a weighted hook. So they have less options for jigging. However, me personally, I just do better overall with jigging. Plain and simple. I have a very hard time getting jig steps with Texas rigs. But with the Texas rigs, it's nice because you've got your weight on the end of it. The weights don't get as big as jigging rigs get, but they can get up to like 28 kilograms, something like that, or 28 grams. And you can use your weight, and then you have the lure behind it, and then you have the hook attached to the lure. And the hooks, you get a lot more options. You can have like a 28 gram weight with like 15 different sizes of hooks, where with jigging rigs, you'll have like a 28 gram weight, and you'll only have 1 or 2 different size hooks. That's kind of the difference between them. I personally don't like Texas rig. I just have a very hard time getting a jig step with it. That's why I use a jigging rig. Okay, now let's talk about the lures. Foam lures are fantastic at Ladoga Lake. Any of these colors will work. Okay, they're cheap, inexpensive, easy to use, and easy to actually craft yourself. The next ones are the classic shads 3003, 5s, 6s. Classic shad 3s are great. The main colors: yellow, white, red, black, or dark color like this one. Okay, one of the hottest lures in my opinion are these ones right here, the maggots and the lins. The lins are colored white, yellow, red, and black. Those are the main colors that I've caught fish on. And when it comes down to maggots, it's the same colors: red, white, black. Now recently, today's records show that a yellow color, like a 003 or 04 yellow color, is working, and also this maggot 4005, which I also have as well. Okay, so the lins are fantastic, and the maggot 4s are absolutely fantastic. These, when Ladoga Lake first came out, these were so badass to catch tons of char with. You can also catch them with stuff like this. You can catch them on Lynn's Minnow Huge. You can also catch them on the Monster Shads, and then you can also catch them on the quicker 4.5s. In my opinion, one of the hottest 4.5s is the 007. That's why I have 2 of them. But in the past, the Tiny Fish 7004 has also worked. Maggots here, Lynn's, fish, rubber, just lures everywhere are absolutely fantastic, and they all work great. Now, different types of spin fishing, or I should say different types of fishing or jigging here. Your jig setup is going to want to be around 35 to 40 retrieval speed, because a lot of people have a very hard time with this 18-meter hole. Now, just in case you guys didn't see, at the bottom right, 83.25 is my spot that I'm at. I am right by the wall, as you can see here. You need to be careful. You can cast towards the wall. If you hit the wall, you will not get a jig step, period. Doesn't matter how good you are at jig steps. The techniques stop working when you hit the wall. So you if you have a problem and you're not able to find out where the char are, try casting close to the wall. You might hit a couple of char that are sitting over there, because it happens quite often. On top of that, when you're jigging out here, you also may consider the fact that you will hook into Xander. Period. You can get trophy Xander here. I've got trophy Xander here before. They're completely awesome. So if you're not making money on Char, which honestly you're probably not going to be making money on them because it's very hard to catch enough to really make any money, you can catch a considerable amount of Xander. So if you find a lure where Xander is really working for you, then go ahead and go for that. As you can see, the 40 speed is actually working fine with the Beluga Narga and a jig step. This is all I really need to do. My first cast usually isn't in the back like this. It's usually out of the front of the boat and it's towards the ocean. So if I was just to reel this in real quick here, my first, usually right off the bat, usually I have the back of the boat facing back there, and usually I'll cast out here and I'll cast close to the wall, and hopefully I didn't hit the wall on that one. I got very close to the wall, let it sink to the bottom, and this is where I'll do my jig step from here. This usually is something that is one of my favorite things to do, because if I'm having problems, I'm getting a little bit frustrated when it comes down to actually hooking into a fish, then I can come, I usually just cast right next to this wall and I can pull something in fairly easily like that. Now you can do a double jig step. I highly suggest doing a double jig step when it comes down to trying to figure out what type of lures the fish are actually biting on. Usually I'll do two different types of lures. I'll do like a red and a black, and then I'll switch the black over to a white, and then I'll switch the red over to like a yellow color or some other different color like that. As you can see, the jig steps are not easy to actually keep going, because you got to think about how the hole actually works. This is an 18-meter hole and it's got a very, very, very steep wall. So when you're jig stepping, you need to make sure that you jig step fast enough and high enough where your lure will get off the ground, while at the same time it'll fall and you can let it sit on the ground long enough to actually get that jig step. So it can be fairly frustrating. So if we just go ahead and do this, and I'll go ahead and pull out my secondary one. Here's the white one. Actually, let's go with the red, and we'll go with the red maggot, and let's try the red maggot. So with the double jig step, you want to kind of face the back of the boat towards wherever you're fishing. Wait till it sits to the bottom and then do a switch. And I usually go 2 rotations, and then I switch over, 2 rotations, and then I switch over, 2 rotations. And I'll just keep messing with this until I actually get a proper jig step going. Sometimes the 2 rotations might be a little much, so I'll bring it down to 1 rotation, and hopefully you can get the double jig step going like this. It's not easy when it comes down to this lake, because it has a drift to it, a very slight drift. As you can see, we're still at 83.25, but if the wind starts picking up or something like that, then more than likely I'm going to be drifting way out of position, and I'm going to have to reposition the boat multiple times. Jig stepping for char on Ladoga Lake, if they are ridiculously stupid super active, then you can make some pretty good money, but don't come here for money. Come here for the experience of just enjoying the fact that you're jig stepping. Oh my gosh, that you're jig stepping for char. I mean, that's kind of the coolest thing. It gives you some experience, some actual fishing experience in that type of setup. It's not going to give you a lot of, you know, the char don't give a lot of experience when it comes down to your levels or anything else like that. But when it comes down to it, that is Ladoga Lake. One of my favorite spots to fish here is right here where we're at right now. And kind of my way of doing it is hit the wall, go straight ahead, go over to this direction. Sometimes you'll hook into like a lake trout, then hit over here, then hit over into this direction right here. So that is basically it. If you guys liked the video, hit the like button. If you didn't hit it, if you didn't like it, don't hit it. Just consider hitting it, because it helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And keep gaming, keep doing it midnight, have a blast. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, have a good one, and bye-bye.